everybody, and welcome to the Bob Stoops app. I'm Brad McMullen, along with Hall of Fame football coach Bob Stoops, who joins us over the phone because he is in Las Vegas, Nevada for the XFL draft. And coach, for people that are not familiar with your history with the XFL and also your future with the XFL, this is an exciting time right now in Vegas.
It really is. We got all the head coaches and our director of player personnel and our team operations guys out here for the draft. We're prepping to Monday and Tuesday for the draft on Wednesday. So all day Wednesday for about, for about 10, 12 hours, we're going to choose our teams and begin practice in January. And the first game will be the weekend after the Super Bowl. And I'll be, of course, again with the Arlington Renegades. So looking forward to it. It'll be fun. And we've got Danny Garcia out here along with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, for our draft. So it's going to be fun.
That's going to be exciting. Can't wait for January, and go Renegades. And good luck to all the players going to be hearing their names shortly this week in the XFL draft. All right, some big stories in college football, none bigger than the very tragic story out of Virginia. Late Sunday night, 3 football players were shot and killed by a former player for Virginia. Obviously, a terrible, terrible scene. Brent Venables sent out a statement yesterday saying his thoughts and prayers are with the entire Virginia family. Coach, this is something you just never want to hear.
No, it's just absolutely just so tragic and sad. No, it should never happen, unfortunately. And my prayers and thoughts are with everybody there as well and their families. And we get so close to our players. They truly are like family to us. And so I just can't imagine everybody on that team and their families and all of that, what they're going through. And again, just prayers go out to them. Just absolutely heartbreaking. We do have some good news to say. The running back that was shot in the back is recovering after surgery. That is some good news being reported out of this horrific story. But again, thoughts and prayers with the victims' families and for those having to recover after such a senseless tragedy. Other big story in college football, the West Virginia A.D. called the win against Oklahoma big, but he didn't get to enjoy that win very long because the school fired him on Monday. Well, we've seen this happen, right, where the AD at Auburn is gone and then the coach is gone a few weeks later. Do you see the same thing happening with Coach Brown at West Virginia? Well, it's hard to say, but generally, as you said, normally if the athletic director is being let go, that usually the head, the football coach is usually tied to him to some degree. But not being there, I couldn't say. It sort of points in that direction, but hopefully not. Neil's a good guy, but who knows what'll happen.
Yeah, huge win. It was the first time West Virginia had ever beaten Oklahoma in Morgantown, but it was not enough to save the West Virginia AD's job. All right, let's talk about the big games across the country this week. None bigger than the primetime game on ABC. It's Bedlam, Oklahoma State at Oklahoma. Oklahoma State coming off a much-needed win against Iowa State as they looked really, really well, with Sanders coming off the bench to lead the Cowboys to a big victory. Oklahoma, though, as we've mentioned earlier, the heartbreaking loss to West Virginia, a game that they had in hand most of that contest. Some penalties not called, some interesting things that happened in that contest. A game that Oklahoma needs to win to become bowl eligible. This is a trophy game. Coach, your thoughts on Bedlam 2022?
Yeah, I'm excited that it's here at home and here in our stadium. That makes a big difference. With Spencer Sanders back, that's a big boost for Oklahoma State. I really do believe, though, Oklahoma and we've been so close to just putting it all together. There's so many positive and good plays throughout the game. As you said, a good part of the game we controlled, but we've made a few too many errors or penalties or mistakes to not allow ourselves to win. But I believe we'll get over that, and I realize there's only 2 games left, but if we can play a complete game then we'll be in good shape. And I believe we're very capable of doing that and can get a good solid win there on Saturday.
I was watching what do you call it, a Vegas insider on TV this morning talking about this game because it's a head scratcher of a line. If you're looking at this game saying Oklahoma State beat Texas, Texas clobbered Oklahoma. You're saying Oklahoma State beat Baylor by 11 points. Oklahoma lost to Baylor. And the success that Oklahoma State had early on in the season, Oklahoma State, who is 7-3, is actually an underdog by 7.5 points at Oklahoma right now. That is the line at Caesars. But the interesting tidbit that the Vegas Insider laid out for people is that OU should be 8-2. There were 3 football games they should have won that they found a way to lose. Do you think the emotions of senior night and being under the lights at the Palace on the Prairie will be enough to carry Oklahoma to this big, much-needed win?
Well, I hope the insider there in Vegas is correct. And it's kind of what I was saying earlier. We have been really close to, if we could finish out some games, play a little smarter, few less penalties, whatever, fewer drops. We've been close to putting it together and being like you said, having a 7-8 win season, wins already, and hopefully in these last 2 games we can do that. I know we've got the makeup to do it. I'm sure Coach Venables and the staff, continue to work with these guys, and these guys aren't going to go away. OU has a lot of pride in how they play and what they do, and I believe they'll be able to put together a really good day and hopefully come out with a great win.
And Brent Venables in his press conference really challenged his players, saying he hopes they were really upset with the loss. What is the key for this game besides the basics we talk about all the time? Rushing the football and protecting the football.
Well, those are big issues, and as well as playing a little smarter, just not having the penalties that put you behind the chains and hurt you, catching balls that are there to be caught, not having mental mistakes. All those kind of things go together with a good, strong running the football and taking care of the ball are big issues, and I believe we can do it.
A key advantage for Oklahoma going into this game will be special teams. Obviously, the incredible all-world punter that Oklahoma has. And then you just see the way that they're starting to return the ball. And last week, you had the block extra point. They returned for 2 points against West Virginia.
Yeah, that was a key part of the game. It gave us really a lot of momentum and, knocks them down a little bit after a score. But, sure, special teams are always a big deal. And hopefully our guys can, have the positive side of the special teams.
All right, Coach, 7.5 point spread, Oklahoma favored at home in Bedlam. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, again, I'm going to go with OU. It'll be a tight game. That's always is playing Oklahoma State. But I believe we're due to put one together where we play a complete game, and this would be the perfect time to do it.
I hope you're right, and obviously a huge night for recruiting as a bunch of big recruits from all over the country will be at the Palace to enjoy that game. All right, some other big games that we're going to be watching this week. USC, Oklahoma's former football coach in Lincoln Riley, will be on the road at UCLA. USC favored by 2.5 points in this contest.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Truth be told, the schedule and timing of these Pac-12 games is so hard to watch. I haven't seen a lot of either team, but obviously both of them having great years. UCLA with the upset loss last week was surprising, and but I'm going to go with USC in this. I just have watched and been around Lincoln and his staff too much to not. And although Chip. I always say it, Chip's a good buddy of mine, so it's going to be a heck of a game. And says so by such a short margin, 2-point line.
Yeah, I'll say this. UCLA has been consistently inconsistent in some of their games. They look like the premier team in the Pac-12, and then other times like last week against Arizona just did not show up and did not perform well. USC, on the other hand, I think they've got probably the best football player in college in Williams at the quarterback position. You've coached him. He's a dynamic playmaker, and he has been the difference maker for USC this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I've seen enough highlights of him and saw him up close and personal, of course, a year ago here at OU and in the bowl game. He's an exceptional player, a great player, and you could tell the maturity even another year. Just the experience he has now, that he's really playing confidently and playing well, and that's where I give USC the edge with him.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at their schedule and you look at the final results, they've already had a handful of games that were one possession this year. Without him, they would have lost those 5 games, I tell you. So, all right, moving on to other big game, Texas Longhorns. Hard to believe they could be in for another 5-loss season, as they are going to be taking on Kansas at Kansas. Both teams are 6-4, but the Longhorns are a heavy favorite in this one by 9 points. But if you remember, Coach, Kansas has not been so good to Texas over the last 5 years.
Absolutely, and they got a good team, Kansas does, and so being that it's at KU, I'm going to go with Kansas. Obviously, Texas has shown their vulnerability, and they can be had, and Kansas is again looking to prove a point that they've changed who they are and that they're a winning team, and so I'm going to give it to Kansas in this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a big game, and the crowd's going to be ramped up for that one. And a lot of points in this one. 9 points is a lot that Texas is favored by. I like Kansas at home with the points. All right, Georgia taking on your brothers at Kentucky. Georgia favored by 23 points. And I say this, Georgia has looked like the best team in the country week in and week out.
They really have. I was just so impressed watching them beat Tennessee, just in how handily they beat them and how strong they were on defense. So, for that reason, again, I'm going to go with the points and Kentucky, but it's going to be hard for them to win.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one to watch right there. And again, Kentucky, if they have great quarterback play, they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. And if that running back gets free, they can do well. Again, a lot of points there. And you got to think about what is Georgia's focus going in. Will the Georgia team that barely beat Missouri show up, or will the Georgia team that dominated Oregon and dominated Tennessee show up? That's going to be interesting. All right, TCU, the number 4 team in the country, coming off that big win at the University of Texas, taking on Baylor. This line, though, is also a head-scratcher. TCU, the undefeated Horned Frogs, only favored by 2 points at Baylor.
Well, that's interesting. I picked Texas to beat TCU last week. You keep thinking, the odds are to go undefeated, that they got to lose one of these games, but they don't. They just keep playing so well. Duggan, their quarterback, has been outstanding. I'm going to go with TCU to keep it going. They got something magical going right now, so it's hard to bet against them.
Yeah, if you had asked me this a week ago, I would have said, yeah, I think Baylor's looking really good. Baylor got trucked last week. They got obliterated last week. I don't know what happened to the Baylor team that Oklahoma played, but that was not the team that showed up. I like TCU winning this game easily with that 2 points. All right, Illinois at Michigan. Illinois, an interesting team. They started out 6-1. Everyone was really excited about everything that was going on there. And then all of a sudden, the wheels have fallen off. They've lost 2 straight games, 2 games that they were favored heavily to win. Now they're going to Michigan. And last time I checked, if you look at the calendar, it's November, and it's not going to be warm in Michigan for a game either. Michigan favored by 18 points over Illinois.
Yeah, I like Michigan. You got to give it to them, man. They've just running the ball so well, and now they're throwing it, as well. All of it together, they've been a solid team throughout. I agree with you. Illinois now has shown they're a little bit vulnerable here the last couple of weeks, so I'd go with Michigan.
And the movie Dumb and Dumber, they say, so you're saying there's a chance. The only chance for Illinois for me in this one is if all of the Michigan football players are thinking about that Ohio State game coming up and are not focused on Illinois, and Illinois somehow, some way finds a sleepwalking Michigan team at home and wins the turnover battle. If not, I think this game could be really, really ugly. All right, another big game to look at this week, Utah and Oregon. Oregon favored by 3 points in this one, Coach.
I like Utah. Last year, Utah was a more physical team overall. They're the ones that, were beat Oregon twice last year and beat them handily. I know Coach Lanning's there now at Oregon, and they're a different team, but I don't know that you can change all that much in just, in 1 year. So I just think Utah will be overall more physical again and beat them.
And looking at last week, right, Oregon just didn't play well.
Exactly.
And physically at the line of scrimmage was really disappointing if you're a Ducks fan. And that's the thing that Utah has done well here at late. So I like your pick on that, Oregon going down at home against Utah. All right, so we've got a look at the Final Four right now from the college football playoff last week. You had Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU. If all those teams win out, that's what it's going to be. But we know that Michigan's going to play Ohio State. So there's going to be a one-loss team there. And all crazy could happen in the SEC championship game if LSU were to beat Georgia. My question for you, Coach, is if Ohio State or Michigan loses and they have one loss, do they deserve to be in the Final Four?
Well, that would depend on, how 5, 6, 7, what they're looking like, and where did they win a conference championship? How have they played at the end of the year? I really do believe in how someone is playing, and in the last couple of weeks would determine that. So there's a chance that they would still be able to be in, but depending on how the other teams are playing, I think would determine that again. And or is there another conference champion that just played an extra game and has one loss?
I agree with you, Coach. That team on the outside looking in that looks really good right now, Tennessee Volunteers. They play no one for the rest of the year. Probably going to win out nice and easy, sitting there at 11-1. Their only loss to Georgia, and they beat LSU and beat them handily. Not only did they beat LSU, they beat Alabama, they beat Kentucky, they beat a ranked Florida team at the time, a ranked Pittsburgh team at the time. They have probably as good a one-loss resume as anyone without having a conference championship. Another team will be interesting is TCU. Does TCU
Absolutely.
win out? If TCU wins out, I think they're in. It doesn't matter who the one-loss team is.
I don't think there's any question. Absolutely, they'd be in.
But the real question, if they lose, if they play in the Big 12 championship game and lose a close game or possibly even lose this week, we talked about the line at Baylor's only 2 points. Anything can happen. I think it's crucial for TCU, though, possibly because of their name, because of how they struggled in a couple of those games this year. They're going to have to win out to get in. But Michigan and Ohio State, you never know. It depends on how that game plays out and what happens behind them, whether or not a one-loss team like that could get in. And the same thing with Georgia. If Georgia loses to LSU, could they fall all the way out of the top 4? It depends, again, on what happens behind them.
Exactly. Like I said initially, depending on what 5, 6, 7 are doing and how they're playing, I think, it just helps determine that.
All right, Coach Stoops, enjoy Las Vegas. Good luck on the draft, and can't wait to look at all the new players that you'll be bringing back to Arlington to the Renegades.
It's going to be fun. Everybody come out and support us, and good to be with you, Brad. Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner, and let's get a Sooner win in Bedlam this week. For Coach Bob Stoops, I'm Brad McMullen. Don't forget, for videos anytime, just tap on our video link. Have a great weekend, everybody.